Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve with myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And I'm still not used to doing that intro. But we're back with that at some point, so looking forward to that. Give me 1 second here as I'm just checking the page out so I can... Facebook changed, or Streamlabs, it seems like changed to where you can't stream to the groups as much anymore. So I gotta make sure that I share this to the groups as well. But today we are going to talk about X-Men 97 episodes 3 and 4. We were out last week being Easter weekend, and now we are back. Have you read or seen anything?
So it's so weird because, it's like we've been around the Easter holiday and everything, but I've been on a horror movie kick lately for some reason, and horror stuff. I rewatched both the Jeepers Creepers, the first two movies. I haven't watched the third one. I'm not a big fan of that Jeepers Creepers Reborn, the fourth one. I don't know if you've ever seen those movies.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, I love those movies. I don't know why. They're actually based, I wouldn't say based, I think they actually made it afterwards, but they actually did like a comic for that. I think it's made by Dynamite. Goes back where like that creature has been, around since like the Aztecs or whatever. Love that, I want to call it a trilogy because I don't think the fourth one actually takes place in the same kind of realm, in the same universe, if you will. But yeah, I just love those movies. So I've been watching that and watching the new episode of American Horror Story that came out this week, Delicate. So, haven't really read anything recently, just been kind of stuck in the horror genre.
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to watch American Horror Story. My sister, my nieces watch it and they say it's pretty good. But I just haven't been able to watch it yet.
Yeah, it's a bit of an anthology series. I like how some seasons kind of play on other seasons, and then some seasons just not at all. Like they don't touch anything else really. So it's a little bit like What If in that way. How it kind of goes back and touches on previous episodes and stuff, but they just do other seasons. So really enjoy it. I think you'll like it.
Did I talk about Godzilla X Kong already? Was seeing that?
I don't recall. Maybe you did. But I'm not sure if that was in private or public.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know we've seen two movies recently, the family and I think last time we talked, I talked about Frozen Empire, Ghostbusters. We saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And then this past weekend, or last weekend, we saw Godzilla X Kong, which I thought was pretty good. Actually, it was a pretty good movie. We saw it in XD, not IMAX, but in XD. I kind of want to go see it again. I think they've done a pretty good job with the Monsterverse.
Mm-hmm.
Will be interesting to see where they go next with it. Some things popped up in the movie. The little girl from last time is back from Godzilla vs. Kong. Rebecca Hall is back. The guy who plays Phastos, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brian T. Henry, or I think his name is.
Mm-hmm.
He's back this one. I'm kind of surprised they didn't bring Alexander Skarsgård back because I thought he did pretty good last movie. Between the whole thing about him and his brother and the whole Hollow Earth theory. But it was good to see Brian T. Henry to get a bigger role in this movie and be more involved. I thought it was pretty cool how they did the adversary in this movie and why we haven't seen anything else and how they explained it. So I thought it was pretty good. Some people complained about it, thought it was sloppy, but my kids enjoyed it. Even my daughter enjoyed it. So she's been going to more movies with us. It was a pretty good film, fun film. I'm excited to see where they go with the next installment of the whole Monsterverse franchise.
What is the next one going to be? Do we know yet? Or
I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm trying to see where they're going to go. Are they going to, are we going to introduce, Godzilla, mini Godzilla next time? I don't know. because we kind of got from the trailers you saw Mini Kong was in this one. But yeah, we'll see. But there's some pretty good trailers coming out too. I think the next movie we'll probably go see is If with Ryan Reynolds. That movie, it kind of feels like it's a mix of, because I told my wife when we first saw this that it was kind of a mix of Little Monsters and Drop Dead Fred kind of feel to me, just seeing the previews. I'm sure it's better than that, but it kind of brings some of that nostalgia back for it from those movies. You know, Little Monsters with Fred Savage and what's his name, Howie Mandel. You know, that kind of thing. And then, of course, Drop Dead Fred. You know, that needs no explanation.
I keep seeing that that trailer for the movie Abigail. Have you seen that yet?
Yeah, where it's like kind of like a horror film.
Yeah, where it's like, I
Yeah.
guess they're gonna like kidnap some like child of like somebody powerful for like $50 million, and it turns out she's like a vampire or whatever, and she just starts killing them all.
Is that the
And,
one with the young woman who played Cassie? I think she's in
think
the
so.
movie. Yeah.
I think so. I think she's like briefly in the trailer. Also the guy that was in, I don't know if you've seen The Strain, who was like the exterminator. I think that guy's in the movie as well. So but yeah, like, you know, that movie just looks fun and different, and I feel like for a kind of like, when you watch that trailer, you do not expect it to go that way, but then it's like, you know, it's just like all of a sudden, like, yeah, she's like, at one point in the trailer, she's like, I love to play with my food or whatever, and you're just like, oh wow, like, you know. So looking forward to that. I'll probably go see that one in theaters. Trying to think about what else I've seen recently, trailer wise, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
Also, there's another Despicable Me coming out. That looks fun too.
Is that the third or fourth one?
I think it's the fourth one in the franchise. So
Okay.
that looks fun. There's a baby Groot as well, you know? So there's the three girls, the wife, and he has a son now. So that looks interesting. One of the villains is back, trying to go after the family. So that's fun. I'm trying to think any other good trailers. There was one, but I can't. Oh, the Borderlands stuff still looks good. I know I said last time, but I'm looking forward to seeing that. And my son wants to go see that. So that'll be fun. But yeah, it's a couple more months here and it'll be Deadpool, you know, Deadpool in the Wolverine time. So
Yep.
that looks interesting. There's some promo art that came out today too. That looks like we saw multiple Deadpools as well. So we know we're getting that. And, you know, Deadpool and Wolverine in a shot of the classic Wolverine costume. So yeah, I feel like that's going to start ramping up more as far as the marketing for that movie. You know, the trailer is kind of like they started to see more of the trailer and starting to see more promotional stuff. So it'll only be some more time before we actually start getting fast and furious with the Deadpool and Wolverine movie marketing.
And I love it too, because I think Ryan Reynolds at one point, didn't he like ask for them to like try not to leak anything, like people to kind of cut down on the leaks? But it's like, you know, it's so funny to me because I don't think we would even have like a Deadpool franchise that started without him leaking it, you know. And it's like, he makes that joke about like, he's made it in the past, like, how did Deadpool get leaked? Nobody knows. And it's like, I totally feel like that was Ryan Reynolds, you know, that did that. So you know, maybe without Ryan Reynolds leaking that first CGI trailer that they had done, we probably wouldn't have that. But who knows if it was actually him or not. But yeah, I just find that one part funny about Deadpool. So.
Oh, and there's that one movie with Henry Cavill coming out.
Oh yeah, the Ministry of something Gentleman. I cannot think of.
Yeah, and at first, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. What's that about? Because to me, it kind of gave me that Inglourious Bastards kind of feel.
It does feel very similar to that movie, yeah. And it's got the guy from Blue Mountain State who also played Hawk from Hawk and Dove, like that team in Teen Titans. What is his name? I cannot think of his name. He played Thad Castle in Blue Mountain State.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Not Alan Richardson, is it?
Daniel is Rickman the guy that plays he plays Reacher.
Yeah.
Daniel Rickman, I think his name is, or no, he's the one that I want to play Hyperion because he looks like
Alan Richardson.
Yes, he's the one that I want to play Hyperion because he has that look of a Hyperion. If you look at him, that's Hyperion to me.
He's a big dude too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so like he's definitely very physically imposing. So yeah, he looks good in that movie too. And I think it's also got a couple other actors, big names in that movie too, with Henry Cavill and trying to think who else.
Have you seen people floating around with the Henry Cavill as Magneto for the MCU?
No, I haven't seen that, but to be honest, I don't really think I hate that, to be honest. Like, I don't love it, but I don't hate it either, you know?
I'm the same boat, and I think you can have other actors for that. Like, I'm going blank on his name. He was in the movie. He's been in a couple good movies. What's the actor's name? I look it up now because now it's going to bother me. Viggo Mortensen. That to me looks like, if you want to go with the same kind of feel that we see in X-Men 97 Magneto, he looks like a Magneto to me, Viggo Mortensen. I'm sure there's other actors for it, but yeah, I don't really see, the fan art stuff is cool with the long gray hair, kind of the mimic of the X-97 character. But I think they could probably do something else with Cavill. I don't really see him as that Magneto type, especially with the dialogue and that type of stuff. So
yeah. I mean, like, I know a lot of people like want to see him in some kind of similar type cast, so like Superman and Marvel, but I would love to see Henry Cavill like do some sort of other role, kind of get away from that.
Yep.
Like, he's a great actor. And I feel like, even myself, like, I got so used to seeing him as Superman that like I forget how good of an actor that he actually was. Not that he did like a bad job with Superman, but it's just like I watched like him in other stuff, and like, what was it, Argyle? He was a villain.
Yep.
I haven't seen that, but it looks like he plays a pretty good villain in that movie.
And that's in the same universe as the what's that franchise? I'm on a bad day today. We had soccer game today, unusual, been out and about all day, then watching the women's basketball championship, and now I'm just going blank right now. The same universe as they started over in England. Samuel Jackson was in it.
Split?
Not Split. They're like a 007 type of franchise with younger kids are in it. They recruited them, and then the one kid, it was Edgerton, ended up being it.
Okay.
It's in that universe.
Okay.
It's not the Gentleman, or it's the man, that's gonna make me forget now. I gotta look that up too as well. I'm having one of those days, people. Sorry. But it's in that same universe. I didn't realize that until I actually looked it up. Where is it? I'm looking up. Samuel Jackson's in one of them. He's the villain. The Kingsman franchise.
Kingsman. Okay.
Yes,
I
it's the
haven't
same.
seen those.
Yeah, it's the same universe as that. It looks like, and it looks like there's another Kingsman movie coming out as well. But if I would have picture Cavill in the MCU, if they don't follow up on the Goldstein Hercules, like we saw at the end of Love and Thunder,
It would be a good Hercules.
yep, he would be a great Hercules, I think, and I think that'd be a good role for him. Too bad we can't do Conan because of the rights issue and that kind of stuff. That'd be another one for him, but I think he could probably fit in that kind of lore. I don't know, but Marvel Studios could, make a big joke about it in this cast: Affleck, Cavill, and Godot as the Squadron Supreme, and also Momoa. That'd be hilarious.
They basically are like the Justice League. It'd be kind of funny if they did do something like that. So
Yeah, but let's get into X-97. We're here to talk about episodes 3 and 4. Episode 3 was very interesting. We see finally the return of Sinister.
Yep.
From the last series, and what's interesting is that the whole thing with, of course we got the Goblin Queen and we got the 2 genes and that kind of stuff. I actually went back and watched. There's like a 4-part episode series in the last X-Men series in season 4. Where it's called Beyond Good and Evil. There's 4 parts to it. And this is where basically Apocalypse gets Cable's time traveling device, goes back to change things, starts recruiting people. So he has like Magneto, he has Sinister, he has others, starts recruiting people to get all of the powerful psychic people to help him change things and make the universe in his image. There's an episode of that where he hired Sinister to kidnap Jean Grey. They also end up getting Charles Xavier as well, and some others, Psylocke, basically all the powerful people like that to help Apocalypse, finish his goal. I wonder if that's when the switch happened. If you also go back to, there's a vision as well in that series where Jean sees herself in a different outfit, Scott, and a baby as well in the vision. Like when, but you also, I think you see similar to when she's scanning minds in this season also. So I wonder if that's where the swap was made for Jean, where he made the swap between her and the clone Madeline or Madison. What's her name?
Madeline Pryor.
Madeline. Yeah, Madeline. I wonder if that's what happened. Maybe knowing that during that, because the way that Apocalypse has his machine, all those powerful people he's using to do what he needs to do are going to die. So I wonder if that's when Sinister made the swap and did that, knowing that potentially the real Jean could die. And I wonder if we'll have other clones out there as the season goes on.
And yeah, I mean, they briefly mentioned that in this show that Madeline Pryor and Jean, although they don't know when they've been switched, they both have very similar memories of everything.
Yep.
So, like, you have Beast, he kind of recognizes that Jean, the one that, like, comes in the second episode and kind of, like, passes out and morphs arms, has, like, I'm going to use the term carbon dating here. I think they may use it in the episode, but it's like her genes basically show that she should be the correct age and the other one doesn't. So they know that, Madeline Pryor is the clone, which she eventually takes that name later on at the end of the episode. But just seeing her use her powers in the fights in this, when she like makes the X Mansion into like, what was it? Beast called it. He was like, I'm a big fan of Dante's Inferno.
Oh yeah,
like and it did feel very Dante's Inferno. Like I love that scene. But even going down to the fight where they go to save the child and Magneto shows up and everything like that, like Madeline Pryor, she put it on Magneto, she really did. And they have to break her of that mental connection to Sinister where she's doing his bidding, and Jean Grey just happens to do that. And I thought that was a very interesting sequence. It was very, very chaotic watching that play out and see Jean relive her memories of when her powers kind of came about and them still not knowing which one kind of came, before, meaning like with the switch, because the clone believes that she like did everything that Jean Grey did. And so you kind of have that moment where it's like without Beast, and honestly their powers are a little bit different. Like Madeline Pryor's in the episode, I feel like they do that maybe to like kind of show the differentiation of their powers
and the colors and how
to kind of like help designate for anybody, this one's Jean Grey, this one's going to be Madeline Pryor. But Sinister has that great moment in this episode where he like appears to her in the X Mansion behind her, and then she kind of has that breakdown. And I love that scene, that transition, like how everything is like them all fighting to kind of get free. Everybody's being tortured, even Morph. Poor Morph. I think in the original series, he was caught by Sinister.
Yep. Right? Brainwashed.
Yep. So, he kind of reluctantly kind of takes them to Sinister in this episode. And he's like instantly turned right against everybody. And so, I really like Morph. And so like I felt like that was a really interesting thing that they kind of did in this episode, which is him going, yep, let me take you to where Sinister was,
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly, yeah.
Looks like RMC's with us today. What's up, RMC? And what's funny too, watching this episode, and I think I watched it a couple times, and one of the times my wife was watching it with us, and she's like, this has a very Labyrinth feel to it. There, the whole Goblin King, Goblin Queen thing, and the baby stealing the child. Yeah. But then when they're even in like when they show shots of Sinister and the stairs and how the stairs were. Remember when at the end of Labyrinth, when she's actually finally facing David Bowie, Jennifer Connelly, and the baby's crawling up and down the walls and the stairs and that kind of stuff, those look the exact same. So it was pretty cool to kind of see that. And I didn't think about it until my wife said, hey, this has Labyrinth vibes going on here. So that was pretty cool too. I think it was neat also that the baby is Madeline's. I keep saying Madison. I think I'm thinking back to She-Hulk with Madison. Madeline and Scott's baby. And interesting that Madeline left, but the real Jean stayed, and the baby was kind of like with her then, it seemed like, and that was the whole emotional saying goodbye to the baby because of they stopped Sinister's plan, and that plan made the baby sick. And so they finally fixed Bishop's time travel device, and he took the baby in the future. I wonder, to get cured or to help heal the baby, I wonder when we're going to see Bishop come back from the future, and will the child be older, and will the child help them defeat Sinister later on in the season? Because also, if you go back to that Beyond Good and Evil, it was a lot about Cable in that one, but I think, if I remember correctly, Bishop was also in that episode as well. So it's like season 4, there's a 4-part series of Beyond Good and Evil that kind of ties some of this together, and I think that's, to recap, that's when the swap was made.
Yeah, and what's really interesting too is, you kind of have this moment where like Jean kind of like tells Madeline that, like the mother's bond with the child, like, that's like, very powerful, and then they take that child, or Bishop takes that child to the future. But Bishop says that he only has enough of a charge to take him and Nathan. So like who knows, maybe he's going to be gone for a while. And it felt kind of interesting to me because it didn't feel like Bishop was going to be back anytime soon, just to me. And it kind of leaves X-Mansion and everybody in it kind of in disarray a little bit, I feel like, and I've got a kind of a weird kind of theory on this, but just, with Magneto kind of popping up and then being like, so like, we have to go after Sinister, Magneto seems different. Like, it almost had me thinking, I was like, I wonder if this is like a clone of Magneto, like this is like, we get like a long game being played by Sinister where like he thinks he's like a good version of Magneto, and it actually turns out that he's a clone of Magneto. And so he's like playing a long game for Sinister and somehow, and that's why he's trying to get like them to go after Sinister, because he's like, we need to get in the danger room, we need to be training for when Sinister in the next episode, for when Sinister pops up again. And it's almost like one of those things to me, I'm like, I feel like it's almost like he doesn't realize he's like steering them towards Sinister, like, and also he thinks he's doing good, but he's actually doing bad, kind of type of thing.
And back to that same series where I think they switched Jean, Magneto did work for Sinister as part of this because of something he wanted from Sinister. And I'm sorry, Apocalypse, and Sinister was there too. So I also wonder too, could that at the same time, if there is a Magneto clone, could that happen there as well before Magneto turned on Apocalypse to help the rest of the X-Men defeat that one?
Because I think it would be crazy if like Sinister's playing some sort of long game, and it's like this reformed version of Magneto, will say, that's like leading the X-Men. He seems to be like more like pointed in a direction, and I feel like that may be something where it's like maybe he's being played and he doesn't realize he's a pawn in Sinister's long game, which we know, like, Sinister has that moment in this episode where he talks about a child of like Jean Grey and Scott Summers is like one of the most powerful mutants, so it's like we know he's doing that type of stuff. But yeah, I'm interested to see after that fight where Magneto gets badly hurt, what happens to him, because Madeline Pryor, she really put in some work on him. So, yeah.
I also wonder too if we'll see Apocalypse again at all this season.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, and not to jump to the next season, or next episode, excuse me, but I was really surprised that we saw Mojo. I feel like Apocalypse is one of those that I thought that maybe at some point in this season we might have some sort of like look back at a previous episode or a previous event or something with Apocalypse, especially with like all the time travel stuff going forward.
Yeah.
With the MCU, with the multiverse and stuff. So we know Bishop's going to do some time traveling. So I'm curious to see how that plays out, because you could always have, and I would love to see it, I don't know if they would do it in the show, but you could always have like a Kang and Apocalypse flashback if they chose to do so. It would be very interesting if they did, but kind of move X-Men 97 kind of closer into the multiverse saga stuff.
Yeah, I'm interesting too, because we know, well, we don't know for sure, but it's reported that the first one we'll see cross over with another show will be Storm. And I think it's the What If series or the Zombie series. We'll see. I got to double check. But I know what we talked about before. So yeah, it was interesting to see how they start bringing those forward. This is like we saw Captain Carter come through What If. Is this going to be our intro lead into X-Men and live action?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we had Captain Carter come through Multiverse of Madness. But they also mentioned the Phoenix Force and the episode as well, the outer space fight.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. That was a I like that moment as well, because they both feel like they held the Phoenix Force, you know, and so that's a very like pivotal moment, because that's cosmic power basically. That's like a massive entity. So like there's kind of that argument, I feel like, where they have almost like that moment in Legion where it's not like them having like an astral projection kind of like mental like fight, but it's like they're both like kind of weaving in between each other's minds, Jean Grey and Madeline Pryor. So interesting. I liked that twist. I was not expecting Madeline Pryor to be the one that had the baby with Scott.
Yep.
And that to actually be Jean that shows up on the doorstep. So,
and then back to Magneto, it seems like there's that continuing relationship building between Magneto and Rogue, and I wonder how that's going to impact things going on, especially with Gambit and Rogue's relationship, and so forth. So yeah, interesting to see. And then wrapping the episode up, we see Storm in a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the introduction of Forge, which I believe in the comics, remember correctly, they had a relationship in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And and there is that whole storyline where she lost her powers and was able to get them back. And this is where we see that Forge is showing up to help Storm Aurora get her powers back as well.
Yeah, and that goes into the next episode, which I think is pretty interesting, because Forge reveals that he kind of made like the early blueprints for like the technology that was like kind of helped to detain mutants and stuff like that, which I thought was really interesting. And Storm gets really angry about that, because I think that's kind of like one of those things where maybe he feels a little bit guilty because what happened to her powers might be sort of related to what he had started working on. So, and he kind of mentions that after that happened, he tried to get away from that and get out of that, but it was kind of already too late. So, love Forge. Forge is a great character, really interesting. You see that he's kind of like living off the grid, but not really living without technology. It's great, but
well, until you get in his basement.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's got that tech where he's gonna work on giving her back her powers and everything like that. So obviously, I mean, I didn't think after what she lost her powers in the first episode, right?
Yes, first or second episode, she lost her powers.
Yeah. So I honestly didn't think that was going to last long. I didn't think, I really felt like that was going to come back. I just didn't expect to see Forge so fast.
Yeah.
And him to be kind of like leading the charge. I was thinking like maybe one day she would just like start to have her powers again or something. And it would just be like temporary, but
kind of like in, what was that movie? It was it wasn't The Last Stand. It was, or was not The Last Stand. Yeah, where Magneto lost his powers in the X-Men live-action movies, and then all of a sudden you see in the post-credits he's playing chess, and he can move the chess piece a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Last Stand. That was the one where he got shot with the needles. Actually, a beast stuck needles in him to stop him. Yeah, so
it was like a power dampening serum or something like that.
Yeah, so I wonder if we'll see something like that with Storm, where she'll gradually start feeling like lightning or the winds, because they keep showing that recap of when she lost her power. She's like, I can't feel the winds, I can't feel the breeze, I can't, that kind of stuff.
God, it sounds so heartbreaking to hear her say it too in the show, because it's like, like she talks about like at one point in the episode, she's like, being up so high that the air is so thin, but feeling how like clear and like, pure the air is at the same time. It's like, wow, so yeah, I think Storm is one of the best characters in this show, just because like I love to hear Storm talk. She sounds like almost like royalty, when she talks. So I love to hear that. But yeah, I'm really interested to see at the end of that episode, we see that owl creature that appears, and at one point in the episode, and I it was funny, like before we got to the end in the show, I was like noticing it, but there's a quick shot where it's like she's sitting in the house, and up in the rafters there's like an owl sitting there watching, and then in like the next shot it's not there. So like I was like, huh, that was weird, and I picked up on that, but I didn't. And you know, right after that, she has the scene where she mentions the owl flying around and everything, and then the episode kind of ends on that cliffhanger. Where do you think that's going?
I don't know. I don't know if that's part of Forge's machine that he put her in, and she's having some kind of vision, or maybe she's having some kind of illusion while she's in the machine still, because it showed us her come out of the machine and leave and that kind of stuff, and her and Forge get into it, and Forge reveals that he's in love with her, that kind of thing. But it's like, was that all a vision in her head while she's still in the machine that he's, you know, working on her with, or is that something else going on? So I'm interested to see where that leads to. But you also notice that his pictures, though, in Forges, there's the X Factor team picture. You know, so was it Quicksilver, Wolfbane, Polaris, Havoc, Strong Guy, Multiple Man, I think, in that picture, I think, as well. So you kind of have the X Factor little Easter egg there. But is this thing, was it called the Adversary?
I'm not
or
sure.
was because I think, isn't that from the comics? Something like that creature was called the Adversary or something like that. So
Yeah.
I wonder what that happens. With that. But circling back, go ahead before we circle back to the other piece.
I was just gonna say, and in the same episode, it's interesting you mentioned that might be kind of like a dream, because we have Jubilee dealing with like
Motendo.
Motendo, the biggest Nintendo knockoff in the world.
Yeah.
But you know, Mojo's kind of shifted to where he's like trying to shift into video games, which I thought was kind of funny. How, you know, he kind of makes that kind of like remark about, you know, I think in one point in the episode they're like having a fight, and he's like, you know, there's no commercial breaks in video games or something like that. I thought that was so funny. But
I found my notes real quick. Yeah, it was the Adversary, and in the comics, the Adversary was a mythical creature demon who wanted to destroy the universe, and Forge had been trained to battle this demon in the comics. Okay. I have my notes here. So
yeah, and you do have like Forge mention that it's like a foul demon, like get that foul demon out of here, like stay out of my home, foul demon. So maybe that is something that's like, it would be interesting if she is like in a state where she's like seeing all that, having that vision or something like that, you know, while she's in that machine, because it would be very similar to what's also going on to Jubilee, which is also kind of stuck in the Motendo, whatever.
Motendo,
with you know, somebody else. Yeah, Sunspot, and they're basically playing through the game and everything. And it's one of those, like, you know, oh, if you die in the game, you die in real life kind of type of things, which I thought was really interesting. Because at first, when I first watched that, I did not think of Mojo when they said the name of the gaming console for some reason. And then when everything came out of it, we had just seen Forge. So I was like, oh, maybe this is something Forge related. And like the Mojo, I was like, oh, okay, this suddenly makes sense. But because like I was like, it just didn't really make any sense to me. But now that you mentioned that, I almost feel like maybe she is going through like some sort of nightmare or dream or something in that machine, because it also kind of plays into, that's sort of what's happened in Jubilee, but with the game console, you know. So in the previous episode, in the third episode, they had actually had Morph like ask a question and change in the spiral and raise all 6 of his arms, take a vote. And I thought that was like a nice little like thing that they did, because it's not like it was a spoiler, but it was almost like they were hinting in the next episode that we were going to Mojo and seeing Spiral and stuff. So
yeah, so it's Jubilee's 18th birthday, and she wants to go to the arcade, and Magneto's having nothing to do with it. He's like, nope. He goes, we're going to do training, you know, nothing to do with it. And so her and Roberto, that's his name, Sunspot Roberto. They go to her room, find that Motendo, and they get pulled in by Mojo. It kind of had the feel to me of Tron meets Jumanji meets the Matrix, because especially with the phone booth, and they get the.
I thought of the Matrix as soon as they got to the phone booth and the phone's ringing, you know.
And then they go through and meet Abyss. What was it again? It starts with A. it's an older Jubilee. It's Absissa, I think. Which the interesting thing here, she's voiced by the original Jubilee voice actor when they meet the older Jubilee, and it's good to see that they tell Jubilee that she has much more powers that she can do, because if you go and watch all the episodes when Charles Xavier's around, he like limits Jubilee to what she can do and kind of keeps her at the mansion and kind of keeps her in the behind the scenes type of stuff because she's not really ready to do stuff. So it was kind of cool to see that she can do a lot more, and she was the one that was pretty much carrying Sunspot Roberto, because at first he still hesitant to use his powers. He didn't realize where they were because he doesn't want his parents to find out that he's a mutant, because right now no one knows but him, besides the X-Men and so forth. So that was interesting. They had the whole thing with like a different world, the divorce court thing with Scott and Jean as well. Funny. Yeah. So they had some nice little Easter eggs in there as well. But then they got back out and we're on to the next, and that's when we ended up with Forge and Storm. But that was a pretty cool thing. It almost felt like filler a little bit, that part.
It did.
Yeah, especially after the last episode and how they've been building things up and so forth, that we had that. You know, I get it's her birthday and they want to do something special, but it kind of felt like some filler there. Like it felt like an episode 4, which it was episode 4 in the live action shows. You know, usually that fifth episode, or the 4th episode is usually that transition filler episode in the live action Disney Plus show. So it kind of had that feel as well.
And speaking of a video game, it felt like a little bit of a side quest in one, you know, like it was, and for me, I think the most interesting thing kind of about it was it kind of, to me, that entire episode, like put Sinister in episode 3 and then took the foot off the gas of Sinister, which I thought they were going to go a little bit forward. Not that it's really like a bad thing. I mean, they've got more of the show to go, but like I just didn't expect them to kind of swerve into you know, that so hard. But one thing that I want to point out that I always think is so funny whenever I see Jubilee is the fact that she's got Jubilee on her earrings like every time, like you know. So like it always like kind of, I don't know why, but I always find that odd to just myself that she has her own name on her earrings, you know. But yeah, it was such an interesting episode, and obviously, you know, they get through, she finds out about her other powers, everything. You have Storm, correct me if I'm wrong, but Storm, when she falls into the little thing with the demon, that's how the episode ends, is with her like trapped in its arms, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm glad too they put the whole Storm Forge stuff in there to continue that story, because otherwise this would have been felt like a complete filler episode, right? Because we saw the mansion get this ransacked last episode.
Yeah.
We come to this one, it's all good. You know, they're kind of in the thing.
So weird how that happens.
Scott and Jean are gone to the UN because of Genosha becoming a country, or made to the UN, that kind of thing. So it was an interesting transition. It's like, you know, Scott and Jean going, which I get, they're kind of the leaders there. They're the oldest X-Men there, you know, after Charles and that kind of stuff. And I get them trying to go with the whole Genosha thing and that kind of stuff, but it kind of feel like we moved on too quickly from what happened last episode with the whole Sinister and the baby and Bishop going to the future with the baby with Nathan and the mansion pretty much getting ransacked. It felt like, okay, it's cartoons, I get it, but it kind of felt like a pretty fast transition to this episode.
I feel like this episode could have been later on in the season, like in kind of like a slow point. But yeah, it was definitely a momentum changer. I feel like, you know, it kind of took the foot off of the gas of the Sinister stuff. Because I mean, like, even Magneto at the beginning of the episode's like, oh, you know, we need to get into the danger room. We need to start like working on our powers. I know Jubilee's 18 years old, but you know, like, congratulations.
There's
like,
no party.
Yeah, there's no party. We're
all
going
business.
We're going right back to training. Which, like, one might be able to argue, like myself, with my theory that Magneto might be a clone. Maybe he wants them to explore their powers more, to know more, so more for Sinister. One of those things of, like, oh, like, Sinister wants them to be kind of, like, maxed out, if you will. But, yeah, I mean, like, Magneto, it's still so strange to me with Magneto right now, because Magneto just doesn't seem like Magneto, and we just had the introduction of Madeline Pryor, so I feel like we're going to get some big reveal at the end of the season where Magneto is going to turn out to be a clone and not know it. You know, it'd be crazy. So
RMC from the chat here, wish it was 2 episodes per week, to be honest. 30-minute episodes go by so fast. They do. And I was watching this Nintendo episode. I was like, after they kind of got out and back to the mansion with Roberto and Jubilee, I was like, I hope this isn't it, because this would have felt like a disappointing episode with just that. So I'm so glad they did add the Storm and Forge stuff to kind of round the episode out.
Oh yeah,
because I've like I said, so far what they built up in the first 3 episodes, was so good that all of a sudden they kind of just stopped here. So I'm glad they continued the Forge piece with Storm, because it was a weird transition if they would have done that.
I don't think the Jubilee stuff like progressed the story at all for anything. And it's like the stuff with Storm, like it's like I know this will sound odd, but like we saw like the Savage Land in the video game, so it's like it was cool seeing that, but it was like in seeing what's his name, Sauron or whatever. So it was like it was cool seeing that, but it was like at the same time it was like it was so unneeded, and I would have rather had more of the episode kind of weighted towards Storm and less of it weighted towards that video game. But it is.
Unless we kind of find out later on that somehow this was part of Sinister's plan with Mojo and that kind of stuff as left behind when Madeline was there and so forth. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where they go in the next episode, because I have no idea where they're going to go. Are they going to continue more of the story? Are we going to see what happened with Storm and the Beast? Is Storm going to get her powers back next episode? Are we going to, see what happens more with Genosha, with Scott and Jean being away at the UN? I wonder where the story is going next. Where we have, it almost seemed like with the last episode with the Goblin Queen and Sinister and that kind of stuff, they kind of got us pretty far out there, and then they kind of pulled us back, to make sure that it wasn't all that, on that, and they kind of, changed things out a little bit during the season. So maybe that's why this episode was at this time. So we'll have to wait and see. But
And just one more thing on, if Magneto was a clone, imagine how much that would impact the whole Rogue Gambit thing going on, because it's like, that would be like another Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey kind of type situation. So, that'd be really interesting to kind of see if they do end up doing something like that with Sinister replacing him or doing something, so.
Also too, Storm, I'm sorry, not Storm, Scott and Jean are not leaving now. They're staying. So that's interesting. So that whole thing pulled them back to keeping, because they're ready to go off on their own. So it looks like, hey, Matt, we have Matt as well. Welcome back with us. But yeah, so interesting to see where they go this week. Wednesday can't come fast enough.
Most definitely. Hopefully it'll be here tomorrow. I know it won't be, but so.
Anything else on X97 before we move on to the news?
No. I mean, I'll say this: without that 4th episode, I loved the first 3 episodes. I thought they were going great. The 4th one just was kind of a weird change of pace for me, but I'm like, I feel like they could have just moved that to any point in the season. Probably it didn't really impact anything, but I mean, other than the one line about Sinister, and it just didn't really connect to the previous one. But I still love the show so far. It's been great. Been very nostalgic. And looking forward to it. I think RMC hit the nail right on the head, where it's like, I feel like the episode should be just a little bit longer, or I'd like to have 2, so
I agree with your comments there. I'm so glad they put the Storm part in here. I feel like she's gonna play a big part coming back into this season, and maybe even Forge will have another role to play besides helping Storm and be in love with Storm. I wonder if we'll have Storm go on any other adventures as well this season, like Wakanda, maybe.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Interesting. Yeah, so
that'd be awesome.
We know the ties are there, and they haven't pulled those strings yet in the MCU. So, yeah, but looking forward to the next episode. Is there like an episode? Hold on, let me look up something up real quick before we move on. Have they listed all the episodes yet, or just the count?
I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
Or we're not knowing until the week of. So we have 10 episodes this season right now. Okay. I think is the plan.
That's the total count.
I think so. I'm not 100%. Yeah, there's 10 episodes right now. So yeah, it looks like we have some names possibly. Yeah, because we got Nintendo Life Death Part 1. Remember It is supposedly the next episode, followed by Life Death Part 2. Bright Eyes is episode 7, and then it looks like we have a 3-part
Finale.
For the finale, tolerance is extinction, and that sounds like a big Magneto swing right there. I think the whole payoff, and possibly find out that Magneto was, telling some fibs there about him having Charles's will, is going to come to fruition, because it sounds like that whole speech that he made at the UN to his trial is going to come roaring back to haunt everyone in the end of the season. So yeah, 10 episodes, and the episode's supposed to wrap up, it looks like, May 15th, if this is all correct. So
yeah, that'll be interesting. I can't wait to see that. I mean, that's going to be huge, especially if it's 3 episodes too.
Yep.
So, that'll be like an hour and a half long finale, kind of everything tying together there. If the episodes are 30 minutes each, who knows? They might make them a little bit longer. So
this next episode, if it is called Remember It, this could either be a Madeline centric episode, or it could be a Storm centric episode. I wonder who this is going to be.
I feel like Storm, probably. I
don't know, because it says Life and Death Part 2 is the next episode, so I feel like it's going to be a Madeline episode coming up next, possibly. And maybe she'll come back to play a role in this season as well.
They just left
or possibly Jean Grey focused. So
yeah, they just left us on such a big cliffhanger with Storm, like, in that final, or in that 4th episode. That's why I'm like, I feel like they gotta go more towards Storm, but maybe I'm wrong, because like Madeline just kind of veers off and is like, oh, I'm out of here. I always kind of wanted to leave. So, I guess that's the difference between her and Jean is like she wanted to leave, and I guess Scott was going to go either way, whichever, won. So, so I feel like Jean being back now, that'll be interesting. And Madeline Pryor's got to pop up again in the next few episodes, I feel like. So
this is from Matt on a friend's account. I definitely think they need to restore Magneto to bring more villains in the cartoon before we get him in live action. Yep, and I think that's going to be the end of the season, is we're going to have him turn and get back to the old classic Magneto we all know and love.
Most definitely.
So moving on to the news. So Wednesday, new episode. Looking forward to it, to see where they go. But moving on to the news, Spider-Man 4 news. From Jeff Snyder, Justin Lin is among the names being considered to take on the lead for Spider-Man 4. Lin has directed Star Trek Beyond, which is a great movie, but he's also part of the Fast and Furious franchise as well. So, family. No, I'm looking forward to it. I think he's a good actor. I love Star Trek Beyond. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to that, to see if he gets it. Also, according to Jeff Snyder, Marvel Studios and Sony are hoping to begin principal photography on Spider-Man 4 this fall, targeting September-October start.
Huh.
So if that's where they're going with it, Sony has a June 27th, 2026 set aside for an untitled Marvel movie. Which means if that's for Spider-Man, if they're starting principal photography this fall and they go through all of next year filming and getting the story done, that means a 4th of July weekend, we could have Spider-Man 4 in 2026. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Also, too, via Variety, they had an article about Zendaya, who plays MJ, about her schedule. And it says, looming in the background, of course, is the upcoming Spider-Man 4, though the script for that film is still being worked on, and there's no director or start date. So there you go. The script's being worked on, but there's no director yet, and that's where the whole thing with Justin Lin. So I wouldn't mind seeing Justin Lin do it, a different take on it, from what we saw so far. Because I think John Watts did the first 3.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that'd be interesting too. There's a rumor going around from Cosmic Circus about after the events of No Way Home. This all leads to the next chapter in his story. The idea now moving forward is to give him a sense of independence. In his mind, Peter Parker is no more, but Spider-Man lives on. Since he has either lost or detached himself from everyone he's ever loved, all he has to keep him going is being Spider-Man, whether the city loves him for it or not. And as the title of Spider-Man continues to consume Peter's life little by little, Peter Parker will take a back seat and continue to fade from existence slowly. So it looks like it's going to be all Spider-Man, not a lot of Peter Parker, which makes sense, right? Because no one knows who he is anymore after the events of No Way Home, so it makes sense. Sam Raimi, via GBR, says he's not working on Spider-Man 4 yet. I don't know what they're gonna go back to me and say. Wait, folks, we can all tell that story. So
Interesting.
this goes back to the whole director thing, right? Because Raimi did No Way Home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know if we're getting Raimi back, we're getting Bruce, what's his name, Campbell back, because he's always in Raimi stuff. So.
Pizza Papa.
Yeah, Pizza Papa. Supposedly was Electro or Mysterio in the other franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So, Armor Wars, which people keep saying this movie's dead, it's not dead. It's searching for a director. So, well, interested to see who pulls that one, because remember, Armor Wars and Ironheart are tied together at the hip.
I was gonna say, I wonder which one's coming out first. I guess Ironheart probably had more filming done, right? So
Ironheart's done. It's completed.
Yeah, so I feel like that's probably gonna have to come out first, and then maybe that would lead into,
or the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Like, I feel like one's got to set up the other almost,
yeah,
you know, or tie into it.
I think Ironheart coming first would make sense, and Rhodey kind of recruiting her at the end.
Uh-huh.
That'd be kind of cool. From the chat here, from Matt, good point that all Peter has left is being Spider-Man, because Kingpin's anti-vigilante policy is going to be a threat to that. Yes.
Uh-huh.
And we'll get to some of that stuff when we get to Daredevil, because there is some stuff we've seen out there for Daredevil Born Again. So yeah, Armor Wars, though, interested to see who picks this up. I wonder if they'll bring, like, it'd be kind of cool to see one of the directors from the Iron Man films come back, whether that's Shane Black or Jon Favreau come back to direct.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, with basically that's been a lot of Rhodey's arc has been in those films, you know, the Iron Man trilogy, but then going to the later films. So it'd be interesting to see if we get one of those guys back. I did like Shane Black to Iron Man 3.
Yeah, and with all this stuff going on with, like, you know, Fisk potentially becoming mayor and the anti-vigilante task force, this is like the perfect opportunity for Daredevil and Spider-Man to kind of cross paths. And like, I feel like it is such a missed opportunity if they do not do this at some point in the near future. Whether, I mean, I guess they could have him pop up in Born Again, like have Spider-Man show up there, but I don't really think they will. I feel like Daredevil could totally be like in the next Spider-Man movie if they wanted to do that, you know, and more than what he was in with No Way Home, which is, it's just, you know, Matt Murdock and not really Daredevil. So, you know, just kind of him as a lawyer. So, yeah.
Deadpool 3 news. Following a social media interaction between Hugh Jackman and Channing Tatum, social media leaker GWGST claimed that Tatum, who was cast as Rune LeBeau in Fox's unproduced Gambit film, will make an appearance, you know, as Dat Thieving Swamp Rat in Deadpool and Wolverine. So, might have a Gambit in there.
Interesting.
Yep. A lot of Fantastic Four stuff. This was a very hot topic of this week because of some things that got announced. But reportedly, it will feature a version of Galactus with a comic-accurate design. So, is it the small Galactus in the machine, you know, or I think that they've kind of already, but it goes on because I kind of expected they've already laid the foundation in Eternals with Arisheim, that they had to follow that route. But when Galactus appears in the atmosphere, expect the visual to look like Arisheim, the Judge in Eternals. Perfect. He will not come from the sixth incarnation of existence like he does in the comics. So that's interesting too.
Probably be a Celestial, most likely. You know,
a Rogue Celestial, like you mentioned before.
So, yeah, like probably come in to clean up the mess of wanting to eat the dead Celestial that was going to emerge that the Eternals stopped, you know, something like that.
Via Deadline, Julia Garner joins the cast as Shala Ball, version of the Silver Surfer. Now, he's the queen. Shala Ball in the comics is the Queen of Zinlaw, and Norn's significant other in the comics. Now, this does point to this film being a different universe. And I know people are all up and saying they want Norn, they want the Silver Surfer, but different universe. But also remember, too, there's been like 20 or so Heralds of Galactus. We don't all have to be the Surfer. There's so many they can pick from. I believe that there's like a handful that were female as well. So people that are not, educated on the Herald history are all talking about Silver Surfer when there's so much history there with the Heralds of Galactus.
I would love to see like a highlight reel of previous Heralds and just like him kind of using Heralds like the Eternals were used for Arishem, you know? You kind of got a very similar situation there. I mean, you know, So I don't really think that it would be too ridiculous if they did something like that. You could also just have, say, like the Silver Surfer and some of the other heralds just be Eternals that
Yep,
he has,
exactly.
like, dormant, and he activates at a certain point when one of them's destroyed, or he wants to take one of them out of rotation, or whatever it may be. So it'd be kind of cool. I mean, I know that's not exactly like, by the comics, but working with what we've got right now in the MCU, I think it would flow pretty
Yep.
well. So
And also, too, remember, this has been floated for a long time. This should be no surprise to anyone on a female surfer. It's been talked about for a while out there in the news. So I don't see why the big shock is this. I think this people had hope, but yeah. Via Daniel RPK, Franklin and Valeria Richards are reportedly set to appear in the movie. The team is reportedly already established and are big celebrities in their universe. Galactus is expected to be the main villain. No actor has been cast for the role yet. I know that Javier Bardem and Antonio Banderas have been rumored to be Galactus, or the voice of Galactus, and maybe they're going to do multiple, with that, depending on how they do the whole Galactus setup. But yeah, I would love to see some kind of Heralds of Galactus special, make it a Marvel Spotlight, whatever the new thing is called. I'll just talk about, each episode is a different herald. That'd be kind of cool to see.
I'm not sure whose idea it was. It might have been yours. I feel like I remember reading like a combo between like everybody. Like I think Jason may have mentioned it. I'm not sure who did, but talking about it would be cool if the Fantastic Four come from a universe where Galactus devours Earth and then they like escape. I love that idea. It's different, and I feel like the MCU, one of the best moments was in Infinity War when they lost, and that's a great kind of like moment to kind of have where like that sets up the Fantastic Four to be like, okay, next time this happens, we have to be prepared.
Yep.
So I think that would be really interesting.
This is a good one from Matt too. If Galactus is a rogue Eternal, maybe his role is to devour the worlds where the emergence has gone wrong. Or that attracts him. That's what brings him about. That's a great one going with Alex said too as well.
Yeah.
From RMC, I think they'll do a Norn down the road. It's been talked about for a while. People need to relax. How is Valeria appearing without Doom? LOL. So I've heard some other chat too, is that possibly we'll see that Sue is pregnant with Franklin in this film. And maybe by the time they do any kind of, because they said they're already established, right? Is the talk of this film. So maybe we see the first part where they get lost, get their power. After they just get their powers, they get back from being lost. That she's pregnant with Franklin, and then we do some kind of time jump, right, into present day, and that's where we see Valeria possibly.
And back to the rogue celestial thing with Galactus being like a rogue celestial. I hate it. I know that they did it, but the second Guardians of the Galaxy has Ego being like a rogue celestial. I question why Ego would send, one of his spores to Earth when there was an emergence that was going to happen here. Maybe he was just going to try and prevent that from happening. Maybe there's some sort of celestial war where some of them kind of became rogue and then they want to destroy what the other celestials are doing. But it's one of those things where it's like we have that foundation laid with a rogue celestial already, so you could just make Galactus not like Ego. Don't make him exactly the same. I certainly don't want to see the flying smoke monster like we saw in Rise of the Silver Surfer, but I mean, you could just have him appear in just like Arishem. That was terrifying. Like, imagine if you looked up in the sky and you saw like that big face just like sitting.
I love that scene in Eternals. People hate on Eternals still, but I watched that film like multiple times. I'll watch it. It's a great film, and it sounds like we're going to get Icarus back as well in some form. Also, there was some, I think, concept art of Marvel Zombies or What If with Icarus. I think. But there's also been talk about what if the emergence, or what if the Eternals did not stop the emergence. I've seen some chatter about that as well for What If. So
and there's this old story, and I think the character's name is Icarus, but it's about him flying too close to the sun. So I was reading something about that not too long ago, and it instantly made me think of that scene where it's like they did a really good job with that scene. I love when Icarus flies into the sun, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's like he's gonna end up thinking that he killed himself, and he's just gonna be remade and put into another body and rebooted basically. by Arishem and then created as like a villain again, you know, like 2.0 kind of type of thing. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of, it's left open. They could totally do that, or they could just have him never appear again. So, you know, he kind of was almost kind of like a herald for Arishem, because even when the Eternals turned against Arishem, he was still doing his job that he thought he was supposed to do. So, you know, interesting kind of parallel there.
In the Emergence and all that kind of stuff, similar thing. So, back to RMC's comment though, but we also remember in Multiverse of Madness, when we went to 838 and we had John Krasinski as Reed, he mentioned Valeria and Franklin as well. So, and there was no Doom there that we know of in that universe yet. So, you can do that without Doom. There's been talk about Doom being set up for this in this film or being a post-credit scene. So yeah, interesting to see when we get more news about that.
Just don't rush Doom.
Yes.
You know, like they just need to just move at a brisk pace with Doom, you know. We don't need to like ram him into a Fantastic Four movie if he's not needed. If it's only going to be for like a split second, like they need to do something with Doom. I'm not saying make Doom the villain, obviously, because it sounds like, I feel like we're probably going to end up with Galactus as the villain of the first Fantastic Four movie, most likely. You know, but they could just make a Doom movie or have Doom pop up in somewhere else, and we work up to Doom at some point, you know.
I think I'll go with our other co-host Andy's thoughts about make a Doom film, but make it from Doom's point of view. Like he's always said, we want to see a film from not the hero's point of view, but the villain's point of view. And I think a Doom film would fit that, and I hope they tie Doom somehow to Moon Knight and the Alps that we saw, where he woke up at, and that's that town, that castle behind him, that was Doom's castle, and maybe we get some ties there from Moon Knight. That'd be kind of cool too.
What if the villain of Armor Wars was Doom, and it's like him using like Doom bots and things like that, and you know his armor and stuff like that, and it's like basically him kind of them trying to stop him from doing all that, and he's like, you know, I'm a sovereign leader, you can't come in this country, kind of type of thing. Like, it'd be really interesting if they did something like that.
Yeah, I would love to see that, because right now pretty much the only person we really have is Justin Hammer really much as the bad guy in other countries trying to replicate. Remember that line from Iron Man 2? Yeah. About 10 to 15 years, you know, Hammer Industries 20, whatever he said.
And we're about at that point right now, you know, and that's where I think they're going with the Riri thing is Riri is going to be like, okay, not only are we at that point, but now like this young genius has figured out like how to make like Stark tech, you know, so it's like, you know, there's going to be other people. It's going to be like Rhodey's probably going to be cleaning up the mess that were left over from like Tony Stark, like, you know, the tech that he had out there in the world and stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see how they kind of move forward with that one line from Iron Man 2.
From RMC, true, I forgot about that. I agree with the slow approach, but Secret Wars is fairly soon. They need to start moving. Also, he says, good idea. What Armor Wars, Alex? I agree with you on that one. Matt here says, Doom finding Wanda could work as a basis for him having his own story. Yes. I would love to see Doom rolling up on, what's the bear's name? His bear. In the snow, finding Wanda, and then, you know, we just see like a bear in a person's, like, we don't see him at first, but then we see, you know, that one shot in the comic where Doom's on the bear and says, I returned? Have that same shot when we finally see him, but have Wanda draped over the bear as he returns back to his castle or to his town. That would be awesome. And then from RMC, that's what I wanted all along. I mean, I get in regards to the Doom finding Wanda or the slow piece of it.
And, you know, you could have Wanda basically take like a hit on the head. She doesn't remember what's going on. She doesn't remember who she is. Doom could find her, basically like brainwash her, trick her into thinking that he was on her side. And then as we move into Battle World, like let's say those two are together, she could not know it, but he could take her chaos magic from her and then power up and then use that to kind of, you know, become God Emperor Doom if he really wanted to.
He could also already be, because he's technology and science, right? So at some point, Doom could already have the I'm sorry, not science, technology, the magic and technology, right? At that point, yes, this, like I was going right here, RMC, the Chosen Crusade, they could do a play on that. Yeah, we don't have the Young Avengers yet, but we have a few of them out there, but we don't need to have the Young Avengers in the story. Just do the Chosen Crusade around Wanda and some events after Multiverse of Madness, we find out her children are out there, or at the events of Agatha, we know that Wiccan is going to be in someone else's body, and maybe Wiccan has to find the other Speed, and then they go out there and make that all that. Yeah, the Children's Crusade with Doom and just the Maximoff kids, Maximoff kids, because Vision have last name. Have the Maximoff kids, the twins, Wanda, and Doom, and it's a Children's Crusade play, and that's the Doom film. That would be awesome.
That would be interesting.
So, Thunderbolts news. There is some set picks. We've seen Geraldine, who's the Viashwan. She's on set. So is Yelena
Belova.
Yeah, Belova, but the actress Florence
right.
Pugh. She's
Yeah.
on set. And then also Val is on set as well. But interesting too, because it looks like they're showing some kind of battle or some place where they got possibly Bob Reynolds / Sentry trapped. They don't show much. She's a little bit, but I think the most telling thing, it was finding Sentry in a large vault was the scene that they showed. The most telling thing though was that when you look at Thunderbolts on the chair and the way they've put Thunderbolts on their stuff, it has an asterisk at the end. So I wonder if it's going to be called something else when this comes out, or it's gonna be like Thunderbolts, blah blah blah, like some kind of story, like a mission, like
the rise of a new super soldier. Or something like that.
Or something like that. So I wonder what they're gonna do with that. But that was interesting too, what they showed. Also being reported that is Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes is not part of the film, at least not in the beginning of the film. He wasn't there on the set, so he's not currently part of the film right now. So I wonder what Bucky's role is going to play in this film. People keep thinking that Bucky's going to die at the hands of Sentry. I keep thinking that it's going to be like Wolverine in First Class, where he kind of tells them to where they can go. Remember when they found Logan, when Professor X and Eric, when they found Logan in the bar. He tells them where they can go. So I wonder if that's going to be the Bucky scene here, because it feels like Bucky is on at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He's on the right path. He's kind of vibing with Sarah, Sam's sister. Let him go off and kind of do like the whole Nomad thing they talked about doing a while back. But do it with Bucky.
Yeah, and it's funny, I feel like with this Thunderbolts movie, like, it's going to be one of these, like, and I could be, of course, very wrong here, but it almost feels like they're going to be sent in to, like, maybe try and go after the Sentry, and then they're going to get there and learn that it's, like, a super-powered super soldier in comparison to the super soldiers.
Yep.
If Bucky is included, you got John Walker, maybe Bucky, and Red Guardian, but you got 3 super soldiers there, so it's going to be one of those, like, they're not going to know this, but they're going to basically be like a sparring match for, them versus the Sentry, and then see what happens. And I feel like they're going to end up having this thing where I feel like Bucky, if he is in this movie, he does die. I don't want to see Bucky die.
Yeah.
But, like, it would be kind of cool to see Sentry rip his arm off that's vibranium and then wad it up into a little ball. And
or beat him with it.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, it would be very, like, a very powerful moment. Be like, oh, wow. But, yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see what they do with that movie. I'm more curious about the name, though. I'm curious to see, I feel like the name is very telling on where they might go with the direction of that movie. And that's probably why they haven't really dropped that, like, subtitle, in there to the name. So
I almost feel like Val is playing both sides here, where she's the true villain, and because they're possibly getting another precious metal out there, besides vibranium that she wanted in Wakanda Forever, that she's playing both sides of the fence here, and that she sends like them in just to test to see the super soldier stone that she's working on, and for some reason she loses control of Bob, and that's where it all goes awry. That's what it feels like this film is going. RMC, no Buck, no Zemo. Well, definitely no Zemo. We'll get Buck, but we don't know how much we'll get Bucky. Looking forward to Red Hulk. That'll be interesting to see between Thunderbolts and Brave New World, how Harrison Ford and the whole transition of Thunderbolt Ross into Red Hulk. From Matt, I'm hoping Thunderbolts ends with Elena leaving the team and teaming up with Bucky. That'd be kind of cool. We don't see him until the end, and he kind of they kind of go off into the sunset and start a new team or whatever. That's a good shout there, Matt.
I feel like there's a real opportunity in this movie for Bucky and Yelena to kind of develop a very similar relationship like Natasha and Steve have.
Yeah,
and it would be kind of like a foil on that, but like. Yep. Because they, obviously Yelena is Natasha's sister, but like Bucky is like a brother to Steve, so it'd be kind of like comparable. I'd love to see that, if they did something like that in the Thunderbolts. So
from RMC, create the illness and sell the cure. That's Val. I mean, look what she did in with Yelena in the Hawkeye series, right? Mm-hmm. Tried to pin Yelena and Hawkeye against each other to take Hawkeye out, and maybe we'll find out there's some history there between Hawkeye and Val as well. I skipped some Fantastic Four news. I gotta go back to that real quick. So I mentioned alternate universe set in the MCU multiverse. But here's the one that's going around though. Reportedly, Jeffrey Wright will join the cast as a live action version of the Watcher. If that is true, let's go. I'm waiting for that to happen. Finn Jones. It looks like Finn Jones could be returning.
Really?
Yep. He posted via his Instagram story the final issue of Power Man and Iron Fist. Along in the pic was also the never-ending story. But that goes when I get to Daredevil Born Again news. There's another cast member from the Netflix franchise coming back as well that I'll talk about here shortly. So I wonder if they're getting the whole band back together. I'm waiting for the Michael Coulter announcement as Power Man. Luke Cage back because we already know there's already set pics with. John Bernthal as the Punisher. They've got everyone else from Daredevil back already. So when we're gonna get, I also want to see what's her name, Misty Knight's that actress come back as Misty Knight as well, and and Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wig come back also. If you're gonna just do all the band now, it's at that point where just bring the band back.
And I kind of feel like once they kind of do Mike Coulter, as Power Man, I feel like they're gonna probably just go ahead and just bring Finn Jones back because like I liked Mike Coulter. I know a lot of people don't think that he was like big enough for Luke Cage and stuff like that. I think he's a great actor. I liked him as Luke Cage. I'll be honest with you, I never actually finished the Luke Cage show. I just kind of like lost interest. It wasn't bad. It was just is like whatever. But I always wanted them to do Finn Jones and Mike Coulter together and just do like a Heroes for Hire series, those two or something. I felt like I would have been probably a little bit more interesting because like, it's like the Iron Fist show. It's not that I feel like the worst part of it was probably the fight choreography with Finn Jones and a lot of that stuff, but I didn't hate the actual show itself, I just had a lot of frustration with him, but I feel like Mike Coulter, whenever he was on screen with Finn Jones, kind of took a lot of that weight off of Finn Jones. So I liked them a lot in the scenes together that they had in The Defenders, for instance, where like they were fighting in the boardroom and stuff like that. I like that. So
as long as Finn Jones does not walk around saying I'm the Immortal Iron Fist like 10 times an episode, I'll be fine. But Simone Missick is the actress who played Misty Knight. Bring her back too as well. That's what I couldn't remember. But what I'd love to see is basically continue on the thread where he had the guns like Orson Welles at the end, and then have Jessica Henwick as Colleen Wig as the Fist if they go that route.
You talking like Orson Randall?
Oh, Orson Welles. Yes, Orson Randall. Thank you. So I wouldn't mind seeing that if they go that route. RMC says seems like they all are. Only missing is Elektra and Cage. Yep, we haven't heard anything about the
Elodie Young.
Elodie Young.
Yeah.
Matt here says if they bring Michael Coulter back as Luke Cage, they can move towards him being mayor after Fisk, and then even do Shadowland and Daredevil and have the two in opposition. That'd be great. They can also bring the whole child in too with him and Jessica Jones as well. Mike needs to ramp up the intensity a little. I've heard rumors of Heroes for Hire, so maybe. Yeah, I hope so. I think that's part of it too. He was a little too laid back in my case, but Luke Cage can kind of go back and forth like that in the comics too, from my impression of it. So, yeah. Secret Wars, via Screen Geek, Sam Raimi wants to direct Secret Wars. I know a lot of people are wanting the Russo brothers back, but I think that ship has sailed, especially with their own production company now and their schedule. Yeah. But I also wouldn't mind seeing new stuff. If people keep talking about the Infinity Saga and that kind of stuff, I wouldn't mind seeing some new blood, and that's why I've liked some of these newer projects that come out, because they've gone with newer directors to do this. But Rami has said, I love 90% of the Marvel heroes that I've read in the Great Stan Lee Marvel Universe comic books. I would love to work with Marvel again. I hope they had a good experience with me. They haven't asked me yet. I hope they do. So,
Interesting.
now back to Netflix stuff. Daredevil Born Again. So set photos show John Bernthal back as the Punisher, Frank Castle. They also show that there is the Vigilante Squad that was mentioned earlier in the chat. So, and they were using the Punisher logo as well. So I feel like that's going to be a storyline. But
Frank
also
is not going to be happy about that, you know?
Yeah. Also via Deadline, it's going to be 2 seasons. So it looks like they're done filming the first season, and I have some news here as well I'll talk about here in a second. So I'm going to butcher her name, I'm sorry. Alet Zurer, who played Vanessa Fisk in Netflix, has returned. So she's back. Yes,
That's
she is
awesome.
back. Now, what's interesting, though, is that up until last month, it was being reported that Sandrine Holt was playing Vanessa previously. So I don't know because of the schedule, or remember, this show was pretty much done and they scrapped it and kept parts of it. So I wonder, with that change and all the reshoots they've done and the strike and the delays, if her schedule got changed and they couldn't do it, or they decided, look, you know, we want the other Vanessa back since we're bringing everyone else back. The bulk of the first 9 episodes is done. Production is reportedly on hiatus until November. The cast and crew will begin work on the next 9 episodes. So there you go. 2 seasons, 9 episodes each. For Born Again.
Which, I mean, like, what? They were originally talking about doing 18 episodes, so they probably just are going to use the second 9 and just make that season 2.
Part 1,
type
part
of
2.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, type of thing. So it's not really surprising, I don't think.
So yeah, we got Vanessa back.
Vanessa.
X-Men reportedly begin production in Q4 of 2025, according to a new Production Weekly report. So, back to Cavill. Could he be Cyclops? Could he be
like
Scott
him.
Summers?
I like him as Cyclops, especially if they make him kind of like an older Scott versus like a younger Scott, you know. But I would be really interested to see who they would cast as Jean Grey for that, you know.
You know.
Yeah. I hope not, but
I'm just kidding.
yeah. I mean, I feel like he kind of could play that role pretty well, honestly, if he was Cyclops.
You know who's a redhead that he's worked with before? That could be Jean Grey? Amy Adams.
Oh, the one that was in
Lois Lane.
Yeah, I was gonna say her. Yeah, I don't like her as Jean Grey either. But,
I'm just playing around.
yeah.
But interesting to see how that goes. From the chat here, for sure, I knew right away it wasn't Frank. We have ever known the Punisher to shoot someone from behind? When have you ever known the Punisher to shoot someone from behind while hiding? LL, he wants you to know it's him. Definitely dirty cop setting him up, which also leads to, I don't know if White Tiger's still in the series, but that was part of the whole thing with the original White Tiger was because of bad cops. RMC also says, I'll be really happy with Cavill as Cyclops. I don't think they can do it. I think it would be a good change because if you think about the first X-Men set of movies, they weren't young, but they weren't old either. They were a little bit on like the edge of in between that, right? And then you look at the second set of X-Men movies, they were all young. So I wouldn't mind us going to an older, established X-Men team, or maybe they come out with the original X-Men team, like in the comics. So we get Angel, we get Beast, we get Jean, we get Iceman, and we get Cyclops and Xavier. I would love to see if that, kind of be in that first X-Men team, but they're more mature X-Men in that kind of case. That'd be kind of cool too. But I can see Cavill as Cyclops. I think that's one of the fan casts I've seen out there that I like. I don't like the whole Sentry stuff. That ship's sailed. We already got Sentry. I don't like Magneto. I don't like that. So I think Cyclops will be a really good one for him as well. And that probably could be a long-term role also for him.
Trading out the heat vision for, optic glass.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool. I kind of like that. So.
Can they fix Cyclops' headpiece though? That's always getting lost. Every time it's getting lost. Can they fix that and give him like some contact or something, some smart lenses? I don't know. Something that doesn't always get taken off and used against him. Because I was watching the first X-Men movie where Magneto takes his glasses off and he's face to face with Jean. You know, it's like, and then you see in other films and in the cartoons, he's done it too. But I loved in X-97 when they were fighting the guys that what were they called? They have the
first episode.
Yeah, I love that. He's like, oh no, you have my glasses, you know.
My eyes.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you know.
Kind of like with it reminds me of Homelander, where he's like, and then he blasts somebody.
Yeah.
If you're gonna keep playing on him losing his glasses in the MCU, I want to see a scene like X-97 where they did that, because I love that scene. I think right out the bat, I love the tones of the first episode with Cyclops and Storm. I want that in the MCU.
And if you know who the X-Men are, like, wouldn't you know that Cyclops needs his glasses to kind of, like, it just seems, like, so weird to me in that moment. It was like, you know, if you, like, sort of even know anything about him, you know that he has to, like, basically open those up to, it's not like his power's in the glasses. So, like, I don't understand their thought process there, you know, but whatever.
From RMC here, they needed him to be a strong leader, and Cavill can do that. Yep. I think they kind of did him dirty as Superman, honestly.
MCU
filming updates. Wonder Man is done reportedly. Daredevil is on hiatus. So pretty much, like I said, the first 9 episodes are done. They'll come back later this year for the next 9. Thunderbolt is happening now.
Do we have a release date on Wonder Man?
I don't have one right now. I'm sure we'll get one because D23 is coming later this year, and we also have Comic-Con coming this summer. So I'm sure at one of these events we'll get some kind of Marvel news. Okay. Brave New World restarts at the end of May. Fantastic Four is in August. Spider-Man, the fall of 24, at least part of it's going to start. Blade is still late this year. Which, speaking of Blade, I was watching Blade as well. It was on TV. Or some channel I was watching, it was on again.
I was watching Blade on TV recently, too. Yeah. That's so funny.
If they were to take anything from the original Blade trilogy, I would say we need a tone of the opening scene of the MCU Blade to be similar to the Wesley Snipes Blade. Now, I'm not saying they can do the exact same thing as the Rave Club with all the blood and that kind of stuff, but that tone and the way that set the things for the movie, they need to bring that something like similar to that in for the Blade trilogy. I also wouldn't mind seeing Hannibal King as well. You know, also, I don't know if we're going to get that far into it, but, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing that also, so...
I really like those Wesley Snipes Blade movies. I feel like the third one's maybe not the best, but I love the first 2.
That damn dog. The vampire dog.
Yeah.
Or dogs. They had like 3 of them.
But man, I'll tell you this. I love the car the Blade drives in that movie. You know,
yes.
like, I'd love to see something like that for him, you know. It just gives me like the Hell Charger kind of vibes almost, you know, in a way. So that would be kind of cool to kind of see that. So
what year are they setting Blade in? So it was going to be a period piece before all the changes, but now it's something that's different. Whenever they do it, though, I still feel like the Ebony Blade is going to be the Vampire Fang version. I don't feel like it's going to be the main version we know from the comics. I think it's going to be the one that the Dracula made to control him and so forth, which is kind of the Vampire Fang version. Vampire Fang version. I can't talk. Armor Wars is next year. Shang-Chi is next year. And Avengers 5 and 6 are next year. So
interesting.
Also, too, there was an untitled Disney movie that was basically dated for July 10th, 2026. That has quietly been gone from the schedule. No idea what it was. It could have been Marvel, it could have been Star Wars, could have been another Disney film. But that film is now off the schedule. So, but what we have on the schedule is Mando and Grogu film. Okay. A release on May 22nd, 2026 in theaters. And Pedro Pascal has been confirmed to return as Din Djarin. And which is easy for him. People keep saying, well, he's still in Fantastic Four and this and that. He voices Din Djarin. I think we saw like Pedro Pascal's face once when he took the helmet off, and he kind of had to go through and disgraced himself and had to go back through that in the waters. So yeah. That is happening. Another Star Wars film, Dawn of the Jedi, we have some news. Via Hollywood reporter Bo Willimon and Andor, he wrote Andor, will co-write James Mangold's film, Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi. So that's pretty cool. Okay. The Penguin, Colin Farrell says the Penguin is really, really dark and incredibly violent. It's one man's rise to what he's always dreamed of inhabiting, which in a certain power is a certain power of social status. So, the Batman 2, this is interesting. So Boyd Holbrook was rumored to be playing Harvey Dent Two-Face, but then James Gunn went to social media and debunked that casting.
But I mean, James Gunn doesn't really have any oversight over those, does he? Because I mean, isn't that like in the elsewhere stuff? Like
it is, but he's still like the head of the studio.
Interesting.
Or one of the heads of the studio. So yeah. James Gunn also talked about Superman and saying that Lex Luthor is the main villain. He did not say Ultraman was not in it. He didn't say Ultraman was in it. He just said the main villain is Lex Luthor. So there you go. Here's one that's interesting though. I thought this was an April Fool's joke when I first saw this, but it's not. There are now DCEU movies on Disney Plus. You know why? Because of the Hulu title that's there now. You can watch Wonder Woman, Shazam, and Shazam: Fury of the Gods now through Disney Plus using the Hulu title. Like I said, I thought it was an April Fool's joke when I saw this, but it's not. So, DCU filming updates. Superman is filming now in Atlanta and later on in Cleveland. Peacemaker season 2 will be this summer. Waller will be sometime this year, along with Supergirl will also be sometime this year. Invincible news. Ezra Miller has been replaced as the voice of D.A. Sinclair in Invincible season 2. Eric Baza did the recent work for the role. So, geez, you need to stop messing up, Ezra. Yeah. That's all I can say about that. Timothy Chalamet signs a Warner Brothers deal to star in and produce new movies after Wonka and Dune success. So could he be coming to the DCU?
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what they're gonna do with him for going forward. I have not seen Wonka yet. I'll probably watch it with my kids. But like I said, I can't wait for Dune Messiah to come out, which I think is maybe a couple years away still because they want to age him and where the story goes. But I'm looking forward to it. Star Trek. Steve Yockey is writing Star Trek 4. Paramount intends the project to be the final chapter for the cast that includes Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, Carl Urban, John Cho, and Simon Pegg. Speaking of Zachary Quinto, if I had one casting that I would do for the MCU, Mr. Sinister.
I would love him. That's such it's so similar to Sylar in Heroes for him, you know.
Well, it's a mix of Sylar and Spock in a way if you think about it, the way he's played Sylar and Spock. Because think of like the chess style moving stuff of Sinister, but then also think about the villainous side of Sinister as well. And we've been watching Heroes, right? I introduced my son into Heroes, and I think between those roles and even when he played in that one hotel movie where he was Jeff Goldblum's son, the Wolf King's son, and just other roles he's played in, I think all of his experience that he's done. I think that he would be a great Mr. Sinister in the MCU. So if anyone's listening that has any poll, Zachary Quinto, Mr. Sinister, MCU, make it happen.
The only other person that I think I would like to see, and I don't think he would do as good of a job as Zachary, would be Bryan Cranston as Mr. Sinister. I could see that sort of, I think he'd do okay with that. But I would rather see Zachary Quinto in that role as Mr. Sinister. He'd be perfect, man. He really would. So
from the chat here, RMC says yes. He said, I always thought Zachary Quinto would be perfect for Vulcan. That's a good one. That's a good shout. That's from Matt there. And RMC says, yep, I could see it. Good shout, Jar. So yeah, I want to see it happen. The Matrix. This is an interesting one. A new Matrix film is in the works with Drew Goddard writing and directing, but also too one of the how do you say her last name? The original. It's Lana Zakowski.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the siblings that did the first one. They're gonna help also. One of them is also gonna help in this.
Did they help in the fourth one?
I gotta double check, but I wonder where the story's gonna go. Now, if they were gonna do another Matrix film, make it independent, make us another Matrix story, make us like another one of the ships, another one of the teams somewhere else, that kind of thing. Don't do a continuation. If you are going to tie it to the same universe, go back. Like, show us the creation of Zion.
Mm-hmm. The first Zion, like the first one or something like that.
Oh, that'd be great. Like, the Matrix, the first Zion.
Yeah.
That'd be a great film. I want to see that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, RMC goes, the yes was for Ezra. Haha. The chat. Transformers. I'm probably gonna, if this happens around here, I want to try to do this. But the Transformers 40th anniversary event is coming to select cinemas May 15th, May 18th, and May 19th only. It's featuring the first 4 episodes of the original series, an exclusive table read with Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, and more surprises. Tickets on sale starting April 10th. So, if they come around here, I kind of want to take my son to this, and as the event comes around here. So
that'd be very cool.
Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan vampire film. Delroy Lindo and Jack O'Connell join the project. O'Connell will be the main villain. This film sounds like they took the original Blade idea and took some of the cast and said, we're going to make this film, whether it's Marvel or not. Because Delroy Lindo was supposed to be, was it Afeni?
Not sure.
I think it's, what is his name? But anyway, the role that Delroy Lindo was supposed to play was supposed to be so Whistler is not in the Blade comics, right? That was kind of made for the movies. There was another character that they based off that for Whistler, and that was Delroy Lindo's character, and it starts with an A. It's not Afeni. I'm gonna look it up real quick. It's gonna bother me. It starts with an A, and then I'm going blank here. Give me 1 second. Let me Google this real quick. He's fictional, but who is he? I know it starts with an A. And not Abraham Whistler, that's his first name, but... Oh, sorry, Afari, yes. Jamal Afari.
Okay.
That's who... it was the mentor in the comics for Blade. And it felt like Delroy Lindo was going to play that character in the Blade movie, but now he's in this vampire film by Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. So, like I said, it sounds like they're taking parts of the Blade stuff and making it their own film now.
Interesting.
Yeah. Dune news. Dune Messiah is now officially in development at Legendary Pictures. So there you go. Last part of the news. Tron. So Tron Ares, starring Jared Leto, is set to release October 10th, 2025. Okay. This will be the 3rd film in the franchise. Yeah, because the first one was Tron, and then it was Tron Legacy, was the second film. And now it's, Tron Ares. So there you go. That's all we have. That's the news. That's X97 episodes 3 and 4. We should be back next week for episode 5, unless we do another 2-episode show again. Let's put that by ear. Let's see what comes out for episode 5 before we come into that. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up today, Alex?
I didn't hear anything about Morbius 2, so I'm a little bit disappointed. But,
if never gonna be Morbin time again.
Never. Hopefully not, at least. So, I don't really think I have any closing thoughts. I'm looking forward to seeing what the next episode of X-Men 97 is going to be. Hopefully they step their foot on the gas on Mr. Sinister some more, and, we get him in live action soon. Hopefully with Zachary Quinto playing him. That'd be awesome.
Back on your Cranston shout, if he doesn't actually play him, he's the voice.
Yeah.
So.
Cranston, I just like Bryan Cranston. Like, he's such a... I loved him in Malcolm in the Middle, and then seeing him in Breaking Bad, like, I was like, oh, he can't play, like, a serious kind of role, like... And then I watched Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow. Like, he was fantastic, so he's a great actor.
You know who else would be good for him? Norman Osborn.
Yeah, that would be a good shout for him. He would do really well with that.
RMC from the chat, he said, imagine a world where Doom and Sinister are present. Oh, I can't wait for it. It's gotta happen. Nothing else for me other than you can follow us the usual places, Comics Evolved, our Facebook page, the groups we have for Comics Evolved, whether it's Marvel, DC, or Star Wars. You can find us on Twitch, Kick, Trovo. We have our Twitter or X account. We're also on Threads and Instagram, along with TikTok. For our followers that watch the show, please give us a rating. If you don't follow us yet, please like and subscribe to one of those locations. The audio is usually on the following few days out there on podcasts where you get to listen to your podcast. So please support us, help us get more traction going. We appreciate our listeners. Hopefully we'll get Andy back sooner than later. We miss him. We'll catch you next time.
All right, see ya.